So you finally got your ducks in a row and you moved to the Philippines or went on a vacation and you start dating. Well, the good news is that your social calendar will be about as full as you have time for. We won't go into all the full dynamics, but expect when you get to the Philippines, you can be dating on a daily basis, really without much problem at all. Now, the more women that you date, the odds start to go higher that as you end it with each of these women, that it may not end in a peaceful manner. Now, I began dating and living full-time in the Philippines in 2012, and I can say that 99.9% of the time, everything ended on a good note. We each went our own way, no drama, everything was cool. That is not by accident. I was not just lucky. I was very selective about who I went out with. So what I want to cover here now with you are some things you can do preemptively, and if you end up facing a bad breakup with a Filipina where all of a sudden there's a whole lot of drama to deal with. So let's jump into that. The first thing I want to share with you is every Filipina that you date is a complete stranger to you. You really know nothing about her other than what little conversation you've had with her in person. And you know even less about her if your contact has so far only been online. Now, for reasons that'll become a bit more evident here in a moment, one of the first things you want to do, keeping in mind that roughly 85% of those will not even make it beyond 3 months. In fact, a vast majority of them won't even make it past 4 to 6 weeks. So the first thing you want to do is, to a degree, maintain your anonymity as you go about dating these women. There's a saying that you cannot unring a bell. Once you have given them your full name, where you're from, specifically, oh, I'm from Arkansas, such and such city. Once you start giving away these kind of personal details, there's no taking them back. So as your first preemptive stance to avoiding future drama, maintain some of your anonymity. When she asks you what your name is, give her your first name. You don't need to give her your full name or your birth date or any other information. And you can even just go by your nickname. Something like, well, people call me Billy Bob or whatever your nickname happens to be. And if they do ask, well, what's your real name? Again, only share your first name. If they continue pressing on it, well, then try to deflect in a fun sort of way and say, well, what, you writing a book? You're going to do an article about me? What's this all about? And then just try to change the subject. Another part of maintaining your anonymity is up to your own discretion. And that is the issue of whether or not you're going to let them know where you live. Now, it's super convenient to meet a Filipina at the mall for some coffee and then invite her back to your place because everything you need is right there at your condo. I understand, and I've done it before. I get it. It's convenient. But if you truly want to maintain your safe place, which is your apartment or condo that you're renting, maybe wait till the second or third date when you've got a better bead on who she is and how sketchy she is or isn't before you invite her to your place. If things go south and you get a lot of high drama from a Filipina who says she's going to make up false charges about you or whatever, the last thing you want is that she knows your full name and knows where you live. If it gets to that point, it may be a little bit of inconvenience, but in the bigger scheme of things, it's better to just pack up and move to the other side of town. And if you're in a very small town, like Moalboal, you may want to just pick another interesting island to live on, and life becomes easy again. The second thing you would think is pretty much common sense, but too many guys have been very sloppy on this, and they've paid dearly for it. And that is, in that first 3 months, never leave them alone in a room with access to your phone or your wallet. Now, you might have a passcode a screen code on your phone. That'll keep them from digging through it, but it won't keep them from stealing it. So if you barely met this girl 4 hours ago and now you have her in your apartment, do not leave your phone and wallet like you usually do. Just put it on a counter somewhere and then go to the bathroom. When you come out, there is the possibility she's just going to grab them and go out the door. So never leave them with any access to your phone or your wallet. This includes, and I know this sounds crazy, but this is very common, expat meets a Filipina, invites her to his place around 8, 9 o'clock. They entertain each other, and then he decides, well, she seems okay, I'm going to let her spend the night. And then he goes to sleep. Again, you just gave her access to your phone and wallet while you're asleep. I remember reading an article of a guy who went to Thailand. He had his passport, his wallet, all his debit cards, everything of value was in his backpack. Now that's great for knowing where your stuff is, but it's a horrible idea if you're going to do what he did, which was to bring some bar girl over to his place. They had their fun. He fell asleep. He woke up the next morning. Guess what? Backpack is gone, along with all his access to his money, his ID, his passport, all of it gone. And the only way he got out of this mess in the news article that I read was that he managed to contact his family back in the UK. They were able to wire him some money, and then he slowly got out of this mess. So keep an eye on your stuff. Me personally, I have a 6-inch by 8-inch lock tote bag, and it'll hold a phone, a wallet very easily. It's got a lock on it. It would take a lot of effort and noise to try to get into it, especially if she doesn't know where it is. You wait till she goes to the bathroom. While she's in there, you put your stuff in it, you lock it, you clamp it to the bed frame underneath the mattress, and you know your stuff is safe. Maybe keep out just enough cash in the drawer for whatever. The next thing you can do to handle a bad breakup is have a support network. Try to establish some trustworthy friends, and I know that takes time, but at least know a couple of guys well enough in your city that you're living in that if everything hit the fan and you just lost your wallet and your phone and your passport, you know the guy well enough that you could say, hey, I know I blew it. Some chick just stole all my stuff. Can I at least go over to your place, borrow your phone to call the consulate, to call the police? And again, life gets really hard when all of a sudden your phone has been stolen. So they may not lend you a bunch of money, but at least if you can access your bank to notify them to change your passwords and put a freeze on those cards, you want to know somebody. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there with no phone and no way to block your cards or protect your assets. So try to get to know a couple of guys. Again, use your discretion. Try to find some regular, normal guys that you could count on at least for that much, some phone access. The next thing you can do to avoid and preempt drama is have at least a basic understanding of the local laws. Now, you don't have to become a lawyer or anything. Now, me personally, I read through about 80% of the family law code online for the Philippines. So I'm fairly familiar with it. A lot of it is generic stuff, but for instance, I have heard too many guys say, oh, I heard the age of consent in the Philippines is 16. Well, it is if both of the people involved are Filipinos. But if you are a foreigner, you are held due to international agreements, you are held to the age of consent of the country that you have citizenship in. So if the age of consent is 18 in your country, it is 18 even when you're living in the Philippines. So do not let assumptions get you into trouble. Have some understanding of some of the basic local laws. Another one you might want to be aware of is that if you have a live-in girlfriend at this current time in the Philippines, if she's with you more than 7 years, they consider that living as husband and wife. And she is entitled to separation compensation in the same way as if you had been married. Now, could Could you have a woman living with you for 2-3 years and she still legally tries to do this? Possibly. I wouldn't rule that out. If you want more information on this, Filipina P has a very good video about it. I'll see if I can put the link to it there in the description and top comments. But you want to be aware of the local laws that might intersect with your dating. Prostitution in the Philippines is illegal. Is it highly enforced? No, that's just the reality. They don't have the manpower and it's not a high priority. Unless, of course, there's some kind of physical altercation. If there's screaming or physical abuse going on, you can expect the police could very well get involved. So at the first sign of anything going south, walk out the door, jump into the nearest taxi, and just get out of there. You don't want to get involved with that kind of drama. Another thing you can do to minimize drama, if you break up with a Filipina and it all ends on a good note, then that's great. But if you break up and she starts messaging you and baiting you and trying to get you angry and accusing you of everything under the sun, do not engage with her. Do not get sucked into her drama. Block her. I am surprised at how many guys will try to finalize and get closure on a breakup by trying to have a logical conversation with a woman in a high emotional state because she can't handle the fact that you two broke up. Nothing good will come of that. And if you say or write anything derogatory towards her in a public forum like Facebook or YouTube or anything else, if you have identified her in what you said, you just made yourself liable to criminal defamation. So the best thing to do is if there is drama after the breakup, she's messaging you like crazy, block her. If she creates a new account and contacts you again, block her again. Do not accept her calls. Do not take her PMs. I can't stress it enough. Nothing good will come from engaging with a woman once she has reached that point. Another thing you want to do, and this is up to you because I know some guys want to settle down, they want to buy a lot of stuff. Once you buy a lot of stuff, it becomes very hard to move around, to just pick up and go. But one thing that I did, not just for the dating, but because I do enjoy traveling and I wanted to live on different islands, is I only kept with me the stuff I really needed. Everything I needed came down to my clothes and my computer gear. And I could easily carry all of that in 2 carry-on suitcases. Or if you prefer, you could carry it all, everything you need, in 1 medium or large suitcase. The point being, you want to know that if you end up with a crazy woman on your trail, you want to know that you could calmly go home, pack all your stuff into your suitcase within 30 minutes or less, roll that suitcase right out the door, get into a taxi, and relocate to another hotel or apartment quickly and easily. I'm more of a minimalist, so for me, this was an easy thing. I don't like owning a bunch of stuff. Everything I own really just boils down to my clothes and my computer gear. Now, you might think I'm being a little paranoid, but I have been dating in the Philippines since 2012. I've talked to a lot of guys who have had some really horrible breakups. I'll just share 1 or 2 just to let you know how crazy it can get. One guy, fortunately, actually took video with his cell phone so that he would have proof. He had already moved out his Filipina girlfriend. She took the time to ride a tricycle back to his place. He saw her out there yelling and screaming. He started shooting video with his cell phone, and when he wouldn't come out and talk to her, she picked up a rock and threw it through his window. So now he's got to pay for that with the landlord. And then she jumped in the tricycle and took off. Now he got off pretty easy because another another expat who was in the news there in Dumaguete. I think this was about 2, maybe 3 years ago. He had a breakup with a Filipina. They had been living together for a while. Wasn't working out for whatever reason. The article didn't go into that. But he had already moved out of his apartment. She was basically squatting in his apartment. But he told the landlord, I'm done. I'm gone. Keep the deposit. You need to get rid of that woman because we're not together anymore and I'm going to walk out on my lease. I don't want any issues with this woman. So he managed to get everything he had into his suitcase, got into a tricycle, and relocated to another area. However, he had bought a motorcycle. There was no way to put the suitcase on the motorcycle and ride away. So he came back the following afternoon, keys in hand, thinking, well, it's his motorcycle. He owns it. He's going to jump on it and ride away. But when the Filipina saw him coming for his motorcycle, she started yelling and screaming that she deserved to keep the motorcycle as some sort of compensation for the breakup. It made sense in her head, and he made it clear as the situation escalated, no, this is my motorcycle. Again, his mistake engaging her because it only escalated. She ended up going back in the house, coming out with a knife, and she killed him. She killed him right there, middle of the day, over a motorcycle. So keep this in mind as you review the things I just covered. You want to be preemptive. You want to maintain some of your anonymity. You don't want to give them the opportunity to access your stuff, your phone, your wallet, your passport. You want to be packing light enough that you could fit everything in a suitcase and be on your way if necessary. You want to have a buddy available. For instance, I once had my apartment broken into. Fortunately, during the weeks before, I had made friends with my neighbor. He was a good guy. After my place got robbed, he allowed me to store my motorbike inside his locked yard because one of the things that was stolen was the extra key to my motorbike. So he let me leave it there for 3 days as I made plans to leave the area. So have a buddy or two that you can at least ask them that kind of a favor. Do your research online, find out the local laws that may apply to your dating activity. It's good information to have. And finally, as you begin to see things go south and they're freaking out on you and they're hitting you up on your social media with private messages or whatever, even if they start ripping into you in some public forum, do not engage, do not let it escalate, block them, never let a toxic person interfere with your life.